name is James Sidley here again at Full Potential Learning Academy. Today we'll be going over parallelism and how spotting errors of parallelism will help you understand why they're wrong in SAT and ACT type questions and help you get a better score in future tests along with the other lessons we've learned previously. Today we'll be covering what parallelism actually is, what different forms of parallelism there can be, how to correct for mistakes and errors in parallelism, infinitives versus gerunds in a sentence, and finally some example problems to work on to practice what we learned here today. Parallelism is what happens when we list and compare things in a sentence and write them out in the same form as we write out the sentence. For example, she hated to take charge, draw attention to herself, and she hated seeming like a know-it-all. While it is a complete sentence, it's wrong because it's not parallel at all. The best way to write this sentence is, she hated taking charge, drawing attention to herself, and seeming like a know-it-all. Or, she hated to take charge, to draw attention to herself, or to seem like a know-it-all. So long as you have the correct form of parallelism throughout the whole sentence, it'll be better off than what it usually would be in different forms. Parallel constructions are constructions in a sentence that allow us to focus on parallelism and make sure that when we're following the flow of parallelism, we follow the flow of constructions as well. Take a moment now to pause the video and study these parallel constructions, or simply write them down. When studying parallelism, it is important to make sure that they are each similar in nature, but it's also important to make sure that you follow parallel constructions, so that way you don't make a mistake. By following parallel constructions, parallelism is made much more clear, and seeing the mistakes in them is that much easier. It's also important to make certain distinctions within parallelism, such as this case, infinitives versus gerunds. Both infinitives and gerunds are phrases that act as nouns. Infinitives differ from to dance, having the to in front of the verb, whereas gerunds differ by just having the ing at the end, dancing, swimming, etc. While gerunds cover a general activeness within a sentence, infinitives go more into detail for specific actions. That's why it's awkward to say we will go to hunting for caribou, when it's better to say we'll go to hunt for caribou. It's important to make these distinctions. While infinitives do a bit more than gerunds, they are both important in just picking out the best way for parallelism to work. Here are some sentences to practice what we learned so far. Each of these sentences has some parallelism errors. Your job is to find them and fix them. Simply switch between infinitives and gerunds and pick the best way to rephrase these sentences. Your best, but it's okay if you make mistakes. This is practice after all. Here are the answers to the previous parallelism questions. Number 1. A personal digital assistant can not only be practical, but also entertaining for hours on end. If you simply leave entertained, we don't have parallelism. But by extending entertained to entertaining, we have parallelism, and it sounds better. Number 2. I bought my tickets, reserved the hotel room, and planned the itinerary. Simply omit the I and we'll have parallelism in that sentence. Number 3. The rebels lacked both discipline and overall strategy. By removing the nor and making it a parallel, we have a shorter sentence and makes it sound better overall. It's fine if you weren't perfect, but with parallelism, it's important to have a free-flowing sentence so that way it all sounds both better and it sounds correct. And you'll see on SAT and ACT tests that if there are no parallelisms in the sentence, then you'll find errors more quickly. By practicing and understanding parallelism, we understand why it's fatal to good SAT and ACT scores and how practicing it today can help us master it later in the future. For our next lesson, we'll be going over comparison problems and how those relate to parallelism, as well as ensuring that practicing comparison problems will also improve our ACT and SAT scores. Thank you for watching. Teach you next time. The material provided was provided by McGraw-Hill SAT's book, Chapter 15, Essential Grammar Skills, Lesson 3, Parallelism. Once again, thank you for listening.